Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Living Well with Janet, where we explore what it means to live well. I'm your host, Janet, a yogi, a meditator, plant forward eater, and all around wellness enthusiast. I'm also a second generation Asian American woman, an experimenter, and a deep thinker. Join me in my conversations and contemplations on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, and environmental aspects of living well. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share a little announcement reminder. I'm going to be traveling to Bali for the first time this September, and I would love if you could come with me. Maybe you've been wanting to visit Bali, but you haven't gotten around to it, or maybe you want to take a trip to somewhere in September, but you don't have time to plan it. This is a great opportunity to come on a week-long trip with myself and a group of 10 to 20 other beautiful souls. We're going to be visiting the Tirta Empul Water Temple, a sacred monkey forest, doing a coffee brewing workshop. I'm going to try to squeeze in a yoga class for us. I'm getting excited just talking through some of the itinerary. If you're interested, I'll have a link to the trip details in the show notes, and you can also follow me on Instagram, where I'm going to be sharing updates as the trip approaches. Grab a friend, grab a sister, your mom, your cousin, a partner, make a group trip out of it. This is a great chance to travel without having to do any of the planning because I'm working with Trova Trip, who will take care of all of the logistics for us. Thank goodness. All we have to do is book our flights, and the rest is taken care of. My wellness practice of the moment is grabbing lunch with friends. I think that it is too easy sometimes when we get really busy and in our schedules to just disregard lunch as like an event, right? Like we will have it at our desks while we're working, or we'll grab something to go quick on the way, or maybe we're like, oh, I'm trying to save money. I should just eat at home. Regardless, I have started making lunchtime an event or being open to just going out and grabbing a meal with friends, like making it like a 1 to 2 hour ordeal. And why I think this is important and why this is a wellness practice is because making sure that we are fostering our social lives and our social relationships is so important to feeling well. Like today, I grabbed sushi with my friend Tim, who had been out of town for about a month traveling around in Europe. And he was back in town and he's like, hey, you want to grab lunch? And I could see Janet in another headspace being like, oh, I'm too busy this week. I got to do this or that. And just being like, well, we'll see each other at, I don't know, like our friend's birthday this weekend. But I told myself, you know what? It's a Friday. I know you have things that you got to do. Take a super extra long lunch, catch up with him, get in some of your like socializing time. And it was great. I feel so much better from not only getting to like try a new food place. We went to this like sushi spot in where is it? I'm so bad with locations and directions, but it's somewhere like right outside of like downtown, like the Arts District. And it's this cute little like sushi spot that's been around for so many years. So not only did I find a new spot, I got some sushi, which is like one of my favorite foods. And I also got to catch up with him. It was just really nice to exercise, like fostering that relationship and then also having some time to just like feed my social battery. So that would be my wellness practice of the moment. I have been feeling really sensitive lately. Like, those periods in your life where you feel like almost any little thing could make you cry? Maybe someone says something to you the wrong way, uses the wrong tone, or just like gives you a look in the wrong way. Or maybe someone close to you is going through a hard time. And even though you are not them, you literally can like feel their emotions and their mood impact your own. Or maybe you're going out in public and it's to a restaurant or an event, and suddenly all of the noise and the sounds and the scents and the people and the chatter and the tapping on the glasses, everything just suddenly feels like way overstimulating and way intensified, amplified 10x, and you leave feeling super anxious and just utterly exhausted. I know that I have been going through some things in my personal life, but I think in today's world, just managing to be an adult, where we have so many things on our plate. We're thinking about job security, financial stability. Am I ever going to get married? Am I going to have kids? If I don't, what will my life look like? If I do, will I be a good partner, a good parent? All these things that we face in our young and middle adulthood years means there's just so much that can cause us to feel irritable, to feel moody, to be stressed the fuck out at this stage in life. And don't even get me started about what's happening in the world on the macro level, right? Like all the political, social, environmental unrest, all the turmoil. Not to mention the pace at which technology is disrupting so many aspects of our everyday lives. Talk about never being able to turn off or stop scrolling, or where the fuck is that music coming from, and the hundreds of tabs on my laptop, or the notifications going off on my phone. There's just so much to be overstimulated by. And I've been hearing and seeing this term lately about being a highly sensitive person, or an HSP. Now, I want to emphasize that I am not a doctor or a certified professional in this space. I am merely sharing what I have found through personal research. So please take that for what it is. So I did a little bit of research into this topic, and it turns out that this is actually a thing. According to Psychology Today, highly sensitive people, or HSPs, are a subset of the population who are high in a personality trait known as sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. This term, highly sensitive person, or HSP, was created by a psychologist named Elaine Aron, who published a leading peer-reviewed journal on personality in 1997. According to her theory, people with high levels of SPS, or sensory processing sensitivity, showcase more emotional sensitivity, strong reactivity to both external and internal stimuli like pain, hunger, light, and noise, and typically have a complex inner life. I mean, this is resonating with me so far, but I want to dig a little deeper and think through, what does it mean to be sensitive? Now, according to Elaine Aron, HSPs, or highly sensitive persons or people, have a tendency to be more affected and disturbed by violence, tension, and feelings of overwhelm. Well, let me think about that. I am definitely one of those people who will grimace when there's a violent scene in a movie. Like, if you are someone who is going to watch a movie with me, you will notice that when there is like a big car crash, or like lots of stuff going on, like I physically react, right? Or I will be that person, if someone pops out, I'll scream. And also when people around me are fighting, like if voices become raised and body positioning happens where it's like someone's upset and there's like an emotional intensity in the room or this expression on that person's face, I get really uncomfortable and I want to help resolve the tension or just remove myself from the situation. And in terms of overwhelm, yeah, I would say I can get pretty easily overwhelmed. Like if you tell me that I have to run a marathon or cook a meal for 10 people, host an event, big projects like that, generally I feel like a visceral in my body, tensing up, being like, oh my God, that's a lot. I feel overwhelmed. And I know mentally, I can break it down step by step and into manageable pieces, but still there's this reaction to feeling like I have to take on something big. And I feel, a lot of emotion and a lot of thoughts that come from that. Now, thinking about sensitivity in terms of crowds and noise and having too many things going on at once, I definitely resonate with this. I remember in the past when I have been in work settings or offices where it's an open office concept or workspace, I had need to put headphones on to be able to drown out all the noise around me and focus in, whether it's a meeting or I'm doing work. And I tend to actually end up doing most of my deep focused work after hours or before hours when there are not a lot of people in the office or not a lot of stimuli and things going on. And this also translates to multitasking. I am someone who, when I do a task, I kind of need to focus in on that one task, and I don't like having to do side conversations, sidebars, or answering different messages all at the same time. I like focusing in on one thing. So this definition of sensitivity around having being disturbed by having too much going on at one time, I definitely resonate with. Now, another way to look at sensitivity is whether you are highly responsive or susceptible. If you have a high capacity for empathy and are sensitive to others' moods. This I definitely resonate with. I am someone who has a high level of awareness and understanding of other people's feelings and needs, and have a tendency to, like I said, if I'm in a room and I can pick up on tension between a fight or whatnot, I also can pick up on when someone's feeling really sad or if they're feeling lots of joy and lots of energy. That definitely, I feel it as if it's my own emotion. Another way to look at sensitivity is if you are someone who's easily hurt or damaged or prompted to be emotional. Now, I'm not a very emotive person, and I can put up a kind of stoic, stern exterior, but I'm definitely someone who is affected by what others think about me and what they say about me. When people put comments on our videos, I'm usually the one within our group and our team that is like, hey, everything's okay. It's just a random person who feels entitled to share their thoughts, or that's one person's opinion. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with it, but it still does get to me. And it usually is in a more subconscious way that tends to come up much later during a period when I'm feeling more sensitive or when I'm feeling more sensitive to judgment or underconfident. But yeah, I definitely resonate with being someone who can feel hurt and pain and damage pretty easily. And I think it can also be hard for me sometimes to receive critical feedback. Now, I've gotten much better with this as I've gotten older and I've just been in more situations, whether that be professional or personal or romantic, where I'm learning to receive feedback and not take it so personally. But I will still have my moments. I've shared on the main pod about experiences I've had where I got maybe a less than ideal work review and how it made me spiral. Or there was this one time, this sounds like a random story, but I'm going to share it as an example because maybe someone will relate. But this one time in fourth grade, I brought home my first C as a grade, like C letter grade. And even though my parents didn't punish me, and in fact, my mom said verbally, hey, it's okay. As long as you're trying your best, everything's fine. But I could read it in her face and I could read it in my dad's silent, like nonverbal, just like the way he carried himself, like stern disapproval, not happy. It actually made me cry. And I was like, oh my God, I just, is that not a sign of sensitivity where you just like, no one's telling you that you did a bad job, but you just pick up on these signals and you get emotional about it. Or another example is when I was younger, I have pretty severe myopia, which is nearsightedness. And there was a period in my childhood where when you go in for your annual optometry visit, my eyesight got worse by 100 every single year. And after a few years of this going back to back, I remember coming home and just freaking out after my appointment, like bawling to my parents and like going to hug them and saying like, at this rate, I'm going to go blind. And even though I knew on a cognitive level, like speaking with the eye doctor and with my parents, like you're in a growing stage, it'll plateau out, all those things. But on an emotional level, I just couldn't help feeling so scared. And I would have a hard time like not spiraling or catastrophizing and being like, oh my God, either like I suck at this, like with grades, or like I'm going to go blind. Just everything is bad and horrible. So I would say based on this definition of sensitivity, like I feel like I'm a pretty sensitive person. But according to Elaine Aron, in order to be classified as a highly sensitive person, there are 4 indicators that she uses to judge. They are depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional reactivity, including empathy, sensitivity to subtle stimuli. So to be a highly sensitive person, all 4 of these factors need to be present in a person starting from childhood versus as the result of a psychological illness or experience of trauma. So this is making me think, okay, I've like read all these, I've kind of processed the definition of what does it mean to be a sensitive person, but do I actually hit all 4 of these categories or indicators, and have they held true since childhood? So it turns out there is a test to measure sensory sensitivity in the adult population, and it's called the Highly Sensitive Person Scale. It was developed by Elaine Aron and her husband, Art Aron, in the 90s. And this test consists of 27 questions, and if you answer true to 14 or more of those questions, you are probably a highly sensitive person. I took this test and I scored an 18 out of 27. So it turns out, yes, I am definitely a highly sensitive person. I'm going to link the test in the show notes. So if you are curious and if you're resonating with some of these like situations that I'm describing and characteristics and traits, maybe you can take the test and see if you test to be a highly sensitive person as well. So say you take this test and you're like me, and now you realize I'm a highly sensitive person. What does this mean? What do I do with this information? Is it a bad thing? What am I supposed to do with this? And, I will admit that I think depending on the cultural background that you come from or your social setting or just your internal monologue, I don't know, you might feel like it's like not a good thing, right? Well, according to Elaine Aron, this trait is completely normal. And actually about 15 to 20% of the population are considered highly sensitive people. She says, it's actually quite innate, and biologists have found over 100 species that possess this trait. Everything from fruit flies to birds, fish to dogs, cats, horses, other primates. And these are all individuals who have a tendency to observe more before acting and react more strongly or are more easily overwhelmed because sometimes there is too much for them to process. So some say that this trait could be an evolutionary trait that's developed for survival, so that you can be on the lookout for predators and dangerous situations. But in modern society where these threats aren't as real, this trait can cause more threats to your peace of mind, right? Some also say that it could be the result of genetics. Genetics can play a role. High sensitivity can be hereditary. So if high sensitivity runs in your family, you have a higher chance of also being highly sensitive. Or it could be due to early childhood experiences like a lack of parental warmth or a traumatic experience that may result in high sensitivity as an adult. I think it's a pretty common thing that's talked about in Asian households. Just culturally, we are not as expressive, not as emotionally expressive, with our love. And I think that if you then grow up in a community like in American culture where you're taught that, love is expressed through these like physical showcases of hugs and of kisses and of words, then that might to you translate to feeling like you did not have a lot of warmth growing up. So that is possible too. So I think for me, it's just helpful to understand what can cause high sensitivity and the fact that it is pretty prevalent in a lot of the population, and not just our species, but in a lot of other species. And she also shared that the quality of sensitivity is valued differently in different cultures. So if you feel like, a certain way about your sensitivity that is kind of more negative, consider that it may not be that there's something innately wrong with you. It's just that your surroundings have a negative opinion about sensitivity. And know that there are other cultures and communities who actually really value this trait. I also want to talk about some of the coping strategies for being a highly sensitive person. This is based on some of the research that I did that Elaine Aron shares on her site, along with other articles that I looked into, and also some of my own personal experience. The first thing is to really practice mindfulness. Mindfulness means being aware of when your sensitivity is causing a negative impact to your physical state, your mental state, or your emotional well-being. For me, being able to practice mindfulness looks like prioritizing my self-care routines. On a daily basis, meditation, yoga, and lemon water. Those are my go-to rituals. I find that doing those and having those steady means that I will be more in touch with my body, with my mind, with my feelings. Being able to see my family at least once a month, if not twice a month, I know that that is also something that plays a big role in me feeling like I'm capable of practicing mindfulness and being aware of my own well-being. And then also taking vacations on a bi-monthly basis. I think just getting out, it's not just taking a break from work, but it's shifting up what I'm seeing in my day-to-day, like experiencing new things, being around different people, different environments. Yeah, so those are some things that I do that help me practice mindfulness. There could be other ways that you do that, but I think that just generally a priority for someone who is a highly sensitive person is to take care of themselves so that they're able to practice mindfulness. The other thing is setting boundaries. Now, I think one of the greatest things that is still a challenge for me, but being able to recognize and accept your limitations is the very first step in being able to manage and set boundaries, right? I think that as a high achieving person and as someone who has high ambitions, it can be really easy for us to push ourselves too hard. And even though it can be challenging, I think being able to recognize and accept that we have limitations is ultimately going to be the first step in helping us achieve more. Some of the ways that might look like is one is being able to set my schedule in a way that sets me up for success instead of feeling overwhelmed. I have a tendency to be a little too ambitious with my to-do list and my schedule, and I will put too many things on my to-do list or too many things on my schedule. And so working on being able to lower my expectations for how many things I can get done in a day, or budgeting more time for certain things is another way to help set a boundary. The other thing is saying no to social invites and asks from other people. Now, this can be really, really hard for a sensitive person who has a tendency to saying no to that person and causing them any discomfort causes you almost actual discomfort yourself. But it's really important to learn how to say no and trust that if someone is not in a great place or if they're asking for something that you can't quite provide, you need to trust that they can take care of themselves and learn that you cannot be responsible for their happiness. All you can do is offer your support and only within your capabilities. If you are someone who hates letting people down like I am, which is pretty typical of a sensitive person, feeling like they might be disappointed in you can feel almost crushing. But learning to prioritize my own opinion of myself has been something that's helped me. And another way of looking at boundaries is understanding that sometimes if someone is sad or angry or frustrated, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily sad or angry or frustrated at you, right? This is something that I struggled a lot with growing up. I remember constantly going to friends and family and being like, "Are you mad at me?" Like feeling really bad, but realizing that sometimes people are just angry or they're just frustrated with something that has nothing to do with you. And it's not your responsibility to fix them, right? So that allows us to give them space so that they can express their anger and not feel like we have to be the ones to solve it. And if someone is directing their anger at you, being able to take a pause and understand that you actually have agency to agree or disagree with them being angry at you. Just because they're angry at you doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. You can take a step back and be like, wait a minute, I know you're feeling anger towards me, but I disagree with that. I don't think that I did anything that I should feel bad about, right? And that's another way of setting a boundary. Another way to cope and to take care of yourself as a highly sensitive person is to focus on minimizing physical stimulation. I am someone who has learned and known for a long time that my living space, my home, needs to feel like a safe space or a safe haven. And when it doesn't, it really disrupts my sense of peace, right? And to me, that looks like making sure that I have natural sunlight. I like keeping colors to being bright and neutral and clean colors because that to me feels soothing and it feels the opposite of chaotic. And, along the lines of opposite of chaotic, I think being able to keep things mostly clutter-free and having open space is another way to help maintain a sense of balance and peace. And another example of how I try to minimize physical stimulation in order to preserve my sensitivity is that I wear an eye mask to sleep. I think this is helpful because it keeps the light out and it preserves having good sleep. And that's one other way of being able to minimize physical stimulation in your space. Another way to manage being a highly sensitive person is to pay attention to your social circle. It's helpful to make friends with other people who are also highly sensitive or identify as highly sensitive people, because then you get a sense of community and a sense of feeling understood, a sense of feeling seen, and a sense of connecting and being validated. And I think that's really important. Although it's not always possible for us to surround ourselves only, with people who are also highly sensitive. And in fact, I don't think that's healthy. I think it's good to have a mix. So if you have close friends and family who don't feel like they're highly sensitive themselves and they don't get it, take the time to explain, right? Advocate for yourself. If someone is like, hey, I want you to come to this event with me that's, going to go for 5 hours and it's outdoors in the elements and you're just like, whoa, this is not going to work for me. I'm going to be way overstimulated. Then be okay with advocating for yourself. So that's the episode. I have been feeling pretty sensitive lately, and so it caused me to want to look into this as a topic, and I found this whole world of research around being highly sensitive persons. And I know that I'm not the only one out there, and if you are listening to this and you resonate with some of these traits and these qualities and these experiences, hopefully you're able to not feel so alone and know that there are other people who feel this, and probably a higher number of us as the world gets crazier and crazier, but also that you're able to take away some helpful tools to manage your own sensitivity. And I would love if you also have tools and coping mechanisms to deal with feeling sensitive, to share them in the comments so that we can help each other and support each other on this journey of experiencing life and being a human and being able to celebrate all the things that are challenging and know how to work through them together. And also, if there's other topics that you want to hear me cover on this show, because I think the idea of living well is so varied and so broad, please either leave a comment on this episode on Spotify or on the post on Instagram, or you can DM me personally on my Instagram. Thanks again for listening. Before we close out today's episode, a reminder that if you're interested in coming to Bali with me this September, you can check out the trip details in the show notes. It'll be my first time and also my birthday gift to myself this year. So maybe if you are also a September birthday, we can celebrate together. Or if not, it's just a great opportunity to visit Bali and not have to do any of the planning. I am working with Chova Trip, who is taking care of all of the logistics for us. All we have to do is book our flight. You can find more details about the trip in the show notes, and you can also follow me on Instagram, where I'll be giving updates as the trip approaches.